I mean, I guess that's something that a lot of people, and this is the big question behind this podcast, particularly with having you here, is this whole idea with men's health. Why are men killing themselves at rates that we haven't seen before? Why are the mental health rates increasing every single year? It's an answer that I don't have a question to, but I thought maybe you would.
I've got a few theories, and they are only theories. I'm not an expert. I'm not a psychiatrist, a psychologist. I'm not a counsellor. I'm a lived experience mental health consumer. I've been through the range from, which I would call from, -5 through to +5, if that 0 is in the middle. I think there's a few things. The stigma is still huge. We're getting better, but the stigma around having a mental illness is still an issue today. We've never been able to talk about it. Going back through the centuries, we've never, ever been able to talk about it comfortably because of the judgment and the fear that you would be treated differently. And you can go right back to find examples of that. And some of the most successful people that have ever walked the planet had some form of mental illness. Winston Churchill had bipolar disorder. Abraham Lincoln experienced acute depression. And some in the entertainment field that you'd be well aware of, world famous, that did great things. Robin Williams experienced terrible mental health problems with bipolar, highs and lows, and tragically took his own life. Jim Carrey's another one. Sports people, Andrew Johns. I think he's the best player I've ever seen play rugby league. Joey has bipolar disorder, and he's talked about it. So why? The stigma, right? Still there, the embarrassment factor. And it's harder for men because we're conditioned that way. From day dot, don't show them you're hurt, man up, be a bloke, be a bloke. And by the time you get into middle age or your episode of mental ill health, and it can happen when you're a teenager too. You don't have to be in your 30s. Then you don't have any tools. You got no toolkit to deal with it, right? The other thing is our lifestyle. I think is a huge thing today, because we're distracted 24/7. The capacity to be distracted in our lives and not be in the moment and be present is huge. And technology's got a lot to answer for there, because we all have iPhones, and we've got notifications. Every time something comes up on Twitter, every time something comes up on Facebook, every time something comes up on Instagram, it's beep, beep, beep. And there's a tendency there to go, oh, someone's posted or someone's liked something that I've written.
With, as you said, with teenagers, this is a big one. People are desperately trying to get that small hit of dopamine that is associated with a like or a share or whatever you've put out there. Because everyone's, it's not just me or yourself who's a content creator. You of the old school with the radio and the TV, all that type of stuff, me with this new sort of YouTube sort of business. As a content creator, you put something out there, you want people to react to it. But with everybody having the ability to publish on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, they are all basically creating content for people to consume. And if you don't get a positive review of that, a lot of people, it really hits them hard. And people are getting, and with kids, they talk about kids getting bullied. Now they're getting bullied at home. They're getting bullied at school. They're copping all this shit from all these type of fuckwits in their class or whatever. And then they get home and they're still copping shit. They're still getting death threats, or I'm going to bash you tomorrow. And they're all constantly in this scope of being fearful, and cortisol levels are through the roof, and they're freaking out. And then they go to bed and they wake up anxious, nervous, worried about going to school. Yeah. And I think it also works with people outside of the social media scape. A lot of men who turn to the bottle. Alcohol's an anti-anxiolytic. They get home from work, they've had a big day, all of a sudden they've got no stimulus going on. You're not working, your brain's not active, and you don't know what to do. So you sit down, you might feel agitated, you might feel just a bit weird. So you start drinking, and then that becomes the habit. That leads to depression, it makes the anxiety worse. And on your topic, on your point of the stigma associated with anxiety and depression and mental illness in general, I think that the stigma is becoming less, but the stigma for receiving treatment is hasn't changed at all. People are doing it, they're going out and getting help, but I don't think that a lot of blokes, if they're in a footy team or they're in a group of friends or whatever, would be able to have a conversation with their friends saying, yeah, I'm seeing a psychologist, I'm seeing a psychiatrist, I'm on medication, or I'm doing this to treat whatever I'm dealing with outside of the positive environment of the sport or whatever.
Yeah.